The big story to start off 2022 is extreme inventory shortages. Welcome, I'm Matthew Nicholas from Matthew Nicholas & Associates, and this is our January 2022 market report. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can see all of our market updates throughout the year. Thank you so much for joining me today. So today we are going to go over what's going on in the Winnipeg marketplace. We're going to dive into some of the numbers, and then we're going to talk about what that means for buyers and sellers going forward. First up, let's go through some of the numbers. So in January in Winnipeg, Manitoba, there was 240 residential detached sales. This number is shocking. This number is about 40% less than last year, and last year we were also dealing with inventory shortages. With only 264 active homes right now for sale in Winnipeg, we are in an extreme position. We're in extreme shortage. We have limited inventory. We have less than 30 days of inventory. This puts us into an extreme seller's market position. What does this mean for buyers and sellers when we're in territory like this? Let's jump into the buyers first. For buyers right now, with such limited inventory and still very strong demand, you have to be patient. Patience is key. We saw this last year. We saw a limited inventory at the beginning of the year, and then inventory started to creep up throughout the year, and prices started to stabilize, and you could actually have a little bit of selection. One of the key things right now is having a plan as a buyer. You need to know how much time you have until you have to buy a home. You have to have your financial house in order. You have to have pre-approvals, and you have to have everything dialed in so that you can go into these situations strong and knowing exactly where you're positioned. We've been hearing for months now from bankers and government officials that interest rates are going to rise. They absolutely are. They're at the lowest they can be. As a buyer, this really only affects you if we're talking about your max out position. We don't recommend that you go to your max out position. You should be looking at your budget. You should always be giving yourself room. So really an interest rate rise of a couple points, quarter point, it really shouldn't affect your house buying position, because that's only in a max out position that you're going to really be affected. So what does all this inventory shortage mean for sellers? What it means, if you have a house to sell in Winnipeg that you need to sell, get it on the market. We are seeing absolutely peak values, heavy traffic, multiple offer situations. So if you need to sell, get that house on the market. Even with all this strong traffic, you still need to have a plan as a seller. You need to have a strong presentation, and you should be as move-in ready as possible. That's where we're seeing the values max out, is in homes that are ready to move into, where somebody can just turnkey it. Another key to being a successful seller right now is knowing what's going on exactly in your neighborhood. Real estate markets are hyper-local. Even inside of all of this intensity, each neighborhood is performing differently. As we analyze numbers, when we list houses and go on listing presentations, you can see really different inventory positions as you move through areas. So understanding your neighborhood and the demand and what's going on in your neighborhood is a key to getting that top value as a seller in this marketplace. Speaking of that, let's talk about some of the neighborhoods that have extremely low inventory. Tuxedo right now only has 2 resale homes for sale. Lindenwoods only has 1 resale home for sale. River Heights, you have a little bit more inventory, but River Heights is a big neighborhood with only 5 houses for sale. Sage Creek right now houses a little bit more inventory with 7 houses for sale, which historically is still extremely low. I have to say, being a realtor for a number of years in the city, these numbers are absolutely shocking to see. Inventory right now is needed throughout the city. So if you are ready to sell, if you are thinking of selling in the spring, if you are in a position where you need to sell that home, our recommendation right now with this market report is get in touch with us, get a plan together, and get that house up for sale. Right now, I'm getting questions every day. What about the impending market crash? I get this question all the time, and I tell people, look, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know what the future is going to bring. But what I will say is I dive deep into the data, and we can look at the data, and we can look at historical indicators, and we can look back to see where the future might take us. All indicators are pointing towards higher prices and sustained demand throughout the Winnipeg marketplace. That being said, there are indications that regulators and bankers want to do something to try to cool the housing market. There's definitely talk about interest rate increases, and there may be some things about restrictions on credit and access to credit coming down the pipe this year. As we know, real estate markets are hyper-local. So even if you have large-scale regulations come forth, each market's affected differently. Calgary and Edmonton, they've been in the tank for 5 years with anemic price growth and tons of inventory, whereas Toronto's been on fire for the last 10 years with huge price increases. We have to understand, what does Winnipeg bring to the table and how does that affect us here? Winnipeg is a very, very stable marketplace. Since 1965, we've only had 3 years where prices have gone into decline. That's great news for buyers and sellers. As much as regulators want to slow things down, we're also moving into an economic recovery position. This typically means better paying jobs and more people moving into the housing market, which, if inventory levels continue at these historic lows, will only mean prices will continue to go up. Another piece of this puzzle is we are seeing absolutely record amounts of money in savings. People have a better financial position. They're coming into the market in a stronger position. We're seeing higher down payments and better financial strength. So again, this is indicating to us that the market's not going anywhere. Look, the bottom line is timing the market is impossible. It's going to go up and it's going to go down over the ownership period. So what we're telling buyers is, stress test your budget. Make sure you're financially strong. Get that savings in place. Go through that budget really, really well if you're getting into your first home or moving to a bigger one, to make sure that you can weather some of the storms that may or may not be there in the future. And always think long term. Housing is a long-term decision. Make sure that you can imagine yourself living in this property for at least 7 to 10 years, and through that you'll be able to weather some of these ups and downs in the interim. Thank you so much for watching our January 2022 market report. If you need a hand with real estate or need any advice, please reach out, shoot us a DM, give us a call. It's Matthew Nicholas from Matthew Nicholas and Associates, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button.